Everybody, welcome back to the Ashley and Tipu Show. In today's video, we looked at Family Guy Creepypastas, and I hope you enjoy. Wait, who's that? You like Family Guy?
I'm gonna read it.
You like
I never
Family
said
Guy?
I haven't liked Family Guy.
Do you like Family Guy?
The dark side of season 8. I will not say who I am. I will not say what position I held that allowed me to be aware of the information that I'm about to share. Suffice to say, I don't hold it anymore. I have read some. Alright, I'm gonna stop the scare theater.
Yeah, I was, bruh.
I have read some of the letters directed at Seth and Fox complaining about season 8 of Family Guy. Is that you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's literally me.
And while I can't officially make these statements to any press, I don't want to stay quiet anymore. Many people feel that season 8 was just off in an odd sort of way. Say you?
what was particularly off about season 8? Like, I don't even I don't even remember anything.
Didn't Bonnie give birth?
I have no clue. No, that would
That was
the
season
Kid Your
11,
Family
right?
Guy lore straight. That was like season 4 or something.
No, that
No, that
wasn't.
was way later.
No.
Yeah, that was like-
Like, they made a joke about how long it took.
Whatever.
For anyone who took note of season 8 of Family Guy for the specific reason of elevated graphic violence, I wanted to say this. Seth MacFarlane was going through a lot of time, a lot during the times these episodes were written and produced. He was heavily involved in writing the episodes alongside series writers. Holy several which made comments later regarding his apparent state of mind during writing sessions. However, more recently, when looking for corroborators, my ex-coworkers denied Seth being involved as he was, as well as Steve, whom I'll explain in a bit. A number of scenes did generate a certain amount of negative viewer response. Peter's head getting crushed between two logs, for instance. But I'd like to point out that these images were no more graphic
He's,
than the thing.
he's like that video of Hassan, like, crushing the watermelons between his thighs.
God, I wish that were me. In addition, there has been blood and gore in the series before. Typically, it's just more spread out over the season. However, if you did feel that such imagery is out of place for a series, you were right. But they just fucking like go from it's actually not that out of place for the series to have it. But if you did feel it was out of place, then yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Editors cut nearly 2 hours of animated gore, violence, and sexual abuse from season A, as well as rejected 3 proposed episodes featuring the character. I read this as the Quagmire character.
Oh, I don't know.
Stalking.
That Quagmire figure.
Stalking, capturing, and finally killing a woman whom he keeps for several days while alive in his basement. That sounds like a season 12 episode. Stewie developing a mind control ray, which he tests on Brian, though he eventually uses it to have relations with. This is literally an episode. This is not out of context for Family Guy usually.
Bro just explained Family Guy and said it was a creepypasta.
Literally.
Lois becoming pregnant after cheating on Peter in a threesome with friends from college, confesses to him, and after they argue about what to do about the pregnancy, he performs home abortion on her using a coat hanger. That is also just a Family Guy plot.
Yeah.
All of this is just showing me that Family Guy is either too f***ed up or this thing is too tame.
There's no hyper-realistic blood, I can't.
I need a Peter Griffin plush doll to fly out of the TV and into my couch. The last episode was eventually rethought and made as partial terms of endearment, but was cut from the air of the U.S. But was cut from the air for the U.S. Okay, despite being shown in the U.K. and being available on the DVD. Okay, oh yeah, the DVD for the season. Jesus, I would like to point out the episode "Doggone." in which Brian loses faith in his ability to write and accidentally hits and kills a dog with his car while drunk. That was season 8 by crushing it in half. When he
No
reveals
way.
this,
If that
everyone
was
but
season 8, Family Guy like fell off way than I thought.
Stewie mocks him, does mock him for a while, but when he realizes how serious Brian is about the issue, he stages Brian's death so that Brian can see the family more and feels validated. Oh my god, it's Vinny! I suggest you watch this episode while keeping in mind that Seth often represents himself through Brian and Stewie. In this particular episode, I also believe the various dogs and their reactions to their environment reflect Seth's emotions.
Did Seth MacFarlane commit a hit and run?
I think that's what it's trying to say. Oh my god. That explains so much.
He's evil.
Early on, when I asked Seth about why he seemed to be emphasizing his use of Brian and Stewie, he just told me he was frustrated with the series so far, that he'd begun to feel like the earlier seasons were idiotic, that the fan base were morons, and that he was stuck. And then he made Ted. His name would always be associated with Family Guy. And then he made A Million Ways to Die in the West. He also told me that he was bringing in someone to help mature the material. He mentioned having worked briefly with the man before. Oh my god, the stressed, slightly manic tone of season 8 culminates in Brian and Stewie. One of the most serious episodes of the entire series. There are no cutaways, and the titular characters behave in a way that seems to show them in their most distilled forms. Again, this episode was heavily censored and altered. The original script called for the scene in which Brian eats Stewie's stool to be shown, not just implied. Brian considers because he feels his life has no purpose, and Stewie saves him with their friendship. Following this episode, the tone evens out, and things return to more or less as normal for his series. Okay.
That was actually a decent episode.
There was nothing particularly occult or metaphysical regarding the circumstances around the making of season 8. None of the writers or animators went insane. Except me. There were no mysterious deaths or possessions. None of that. For those of you looking for a twist or reason, I will say this. While Seth... Come on. You can do it. Okay. While Seth usually seemed tired outside of working, he did his best to keep up appearances at major events and gatherings. However, it was said that he often looked sicker or more listless in the presence of his consultant. I assume this is the man Seth had mentioned to me early on, and was reluctant to say no to suggestions said consultant, whom I will call Steve. Why you're calling him Steve? I thought it was his name. From what I've gathered, he didn't really start making suggestions during sessions until around episode 3, but was talking to Seth in private about the series. He was silent for some time, almost absent aside from just sitting in, and then began to converse more actively with Seth and the co-writers by the middle of the season. While those who had to deal with Steve did usually seem irritated or perturbed by his presence, he did have some connections. Dwayne Johnson's brief appearance in episode 10, Big Man on Hippocampus, was attributed to Steve, and I was told Mr. Johnson, when jokingly asked by one of the crew on set about how he got asked to do the scene, commented that he was only there because he owed a favor to Steve.
What if you're just calling him Steve because it's literally just Scott Grimes?
Oh, he acted uncomfortable at the time, and even during filming the short, it was done in one take, and he was not asked to do it a second time. From what I've heard, Steve was present, and he seemed pleased by the fact Mr. Johnson was visibly uneasy. During one session, the second time I saw him in person, I did question Steve directly about a suggested plot, and when he turned to look at me, I was genuinely scared. I had no idea why. He had never once threatened, swore, or made a personally violent move. I suppose it was the series ideas regarding violence and gore he pitched to Seth. I should mention that when others did protest suggested violence, Steve would typically switch to sexual themes, racism, mental illness, or just withdraw altogether until he could work in one of his themes again. Holy shit, he created the rest of Family Guy.
bro's a favorite Family Guy writer.
The pitch I was concerned about was for a running gag. The question I asked was something along the lines of, I think that what we're doing may be too much for one episode, April and Quahog. Blood is okay once, maybe twice in the episode, but showing the same man dying over and over might be a bit much. Nerd. The gag being pitched was that Peter, at various points in the episode, runs over the same man who, despite being whole and alive, every encounter is increasingly mauled every instance, with a different reoccurring character running over and screaming that the man was dead. Seth was unaccompanied to the writing sessions for episode 17, and he was much more energetic than I'd seen him in months. He was almost celebratory, and it showed. He picked some of his favorite musical numbers from the series, Cut or Not, for the end of the episode, the plot of which seemed to have been a symbol for his own self-redemption. I have been unable to track Steve down since to find out more about him. No records exist within the company to show that he was ever officially signed on or paid, and I believe he may have been privately hired by Seth. For what reason, I have no idea. I'm just glad to know he's gone.
What was the point of
You know,
that?
I'm glad Quagmire. I'm sure he has made way darker episodes that were not approved to be aired and has cacked them. Maybe one day he'll crack and release them on YouTube. Well, he actually did make this episode. He did heavily censor it, but it was only a censor if Brian, spelled incorrectly, would become a ghost and then come back. So,
No, not a ghost.
well, epic. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Not really my taste. 3 out of 10.
That's
not what I. 2 out of
solid,
10.
not my taste.
Okay, let me read this. I'll read this. On day, I was at home like normal, doing normal things. I was watching Family Guy on my TV on Hulu.
This
just
guy
finished
is not
the
doing
episode.
normal things.
I just finished the episode where Peter is gay. And then my TV went off. I said, "Oh, shit," and my TV turned back on.
Oh no.
I was surprised. I said, "What the hell?" But my television turned back on, and it was a different episode. It was one I had never seen before. It started like normal. Lewis was on the piano singing. But when she said violence in movies, it glitches. Instead of saying the segs on TB, she said, "You will die, 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 hell, devil." I got scared. The theme song ends, and it went to an episode. Meg walks into the living room, where the family hangs out at. The Griffins say, what?
The Griffians.
The Griffians, and she said, "Hi, Gwaze." Peter says, "It up, Mo," and he farts on her face. Meg looks sad. Her face was burned from Peter's dirty, toxic fart. She cried and ran up to her room. I was really nervous now. She was crying blood, but not normal blood. It looked real. Then she started growling like... It was loud. Oh, my bad. She grabbed a knife and went downstairs. She stabbed Peter in the neck so hard that his neck flew off and hit Stewie in the face, or hit Stowie in the face. Stowie said, "Oh no, what the dunce?" And he fell and cracked his head open. Lewis was screaming like a ho, and Meghan and Meghan stamped bed her in the eye. Lewis cried, and Meg ripped
Louise.
her eye out.
Bro, Louise.
Oh.
Then Meg saw Brian and Chris. She said, "Come her fat fuck," and Chris cried. She made Chase eat Brian. Then she slit Chase open and killed him. The episode needed, and then some text came in the S-teen and said violence and movies. And it ended. I don't know what happened or what that was, but it scared me so bad.
That was good. 10 out of 10.
You get my upvote.
You read this time if we were gonna read.
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll read it. Have you ever wondered how the entire Griffin family has been able to get into all sorts of hijinks? Hijinks?
Yeah.
What is that a real word?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? I've never heard that before.
How?
Have you not? Alright, go to dictionary.com. Alright, dictionary.com now.
Ranging from paranormal to societal without there being any repercussions? Well, the answer is very simple. The entire plot is within Peter's mind. And it all started with Meg, rather than being the big, unattractive, unpleasant girl that everyone in the show makes her out to be. She was a very beautiful and very popular teenage girl at the prime of her life in high school. She was also very caring for her poor younger brother, Chris. Chris didn't get enough oxygen when he was born, thus resulting in his mental throughout his life. Meg had a special bond and love for Chris, and could not stand the fact that Chris could not receive the attention and love that she had received from everyone, including their parents. As a result, one night Meg took her younger brother to a party. However, after heavy drinking on Meg's part, and a panic attack on Chris's part, Meg decided to take her brother home. As a result of her inebriated state, Meg totaled the car, resulting in the death of her and her brother. Unable to grieve with the death of her two children, Lois committed suicide shortly after the accident while she was pregnant with the son that Peter posthumously decided to name Stewie. Unable to cope with the death of everyone that he had ever loved, Peter slowly slipped into insanity, creating a world where his 3 children and his wife were still alive. That is why everyone in the show was so mean and distasteful towards Meg. Peter still resents her for ultimately being responsible for the death of everyone around him. However, there is still a minuscule part of Peter that loves Meg for the beautiful and wonderful girl she was, and the love that she held for Chris, which is why every once in a while you see Peter showing some sort of compassion towards his daughter. This would also explain the hyper-intelligence of Stewie. Unsure of how Stewie's future would have become, Peter imagined his son with great intelligence and great potential, creating any sort of gadget that he would please. However, his resentment towards Lois also builds up in his image of Stewie, angry at her for taking away their still unborn child, which would explain why Stewie constantly plans for his mother's death, which would explain why Stewie never seems to age. As for Peter's extreme stupidity, he wasn't like that in real life. Peter was actually a very intelligent man. However, feeling like he had not met to the standards of his role as a father and a husband, unable to protect his children and his wife, Peter in himself has turned himself into the complete idiot that he perceives himself to be. However, he has created a different personality to express the intelligent man that he had always been, in the form of the family dog, Brian. As for Cleveland, Quagmire, and Joe, they are all real people involved in Peter's life. Cleveland and Quagmire did live in the same neighborhood as Peter. Their appearances in the show represent the times that they visit their old friend Peter in the mental hospital, an attempt to humor him in his insanity-induced world. Cleveland and Quagmire also told Peter about Joe, the man who moved into his new house with his wife, his son, and a newborn baby on the way. Having never met Joe, Peter decided to include him into this new world as the man that he never could have been, a strong, heroic, devoted father and husband, who unconditionally loved his family despite his crippling disability. Cleveland, having visited his friend Peter more in the hospital, found that he himself was slowly starting to lose his mind when he was helping Peter indulge in his imagination. As a result, Cleveland decided to stop his visitations to Peter, resulting in the spin-off show that Peter created in his new world. Peter constantly is the one who brings troubles onto himself and his family. However, in the end of it all, he knows that his whole family is safe and that he loves each and every member unconditionally. And that is really all that Peter Griffin ever wanted.
That was
It
bad.
was...
Oh, what the hell's going on?
What is going on? Click F.
Look at it.
The Griffins
Oh,
were
what?
watching the news one night, and they saw an emergency alert saying that there was going to be a hurricane and that Quahog was in its
That
path
Quahog?
of destruction.
I'm sorry.
No.
That this would happen in a few days.
Dude, this guy talks like
Griffins
that one kid from
didn't
Home
hear that
Movies.
So
You see, I see the vision with this.
eventually, they thought as long as they just stayed inside,
This one's a banger. This one's
they
absolute
could
banger.
get it out and nothing would happen. But
The background
they were
music.
severely.
It's so eerie.
Peter and
I'm scared. I'm
were
quaking.
watching TV on the couch when all of a sudden they felt water, and when they looked down at the floor, they saw their house was beginning to flood.
No.
Peter yelled for the rest of the family to come
They
downstairs.
felt...
Why do they go
Finally,
downstairs?
They saw what was happening, and they knew they had to get out of there. And so they began walking through the rising water to the front door. But when Peter tried to open it, it wouldn't budge. When they looked outside
Break the
the house,
window.
they saw the streets were filled with water. It was flooded. The water.
This delivery.
Eventually, there was so much water.
Everything was filled with water.
Water came rushing into their house.
Dude, go upstairs.
Hi, I'm James Ward. Make sure to subscribe to the Ashley and T-Point Show. Wow, wow!